Good evening. My name is Phil Goddard. Welcome to Bourne Environmental Review, December 18th, 2025. Time flies. I do one show a year at this point. Maybe I'll do more in 2026, but a year ago I had Jake McCumber who was the Natural Resources Manager at Joint Base Cape Cod. Tonight my guest is a gentleman I've worked with for about 15, 20 years. And I work with him in a professional capacity in my role with the town of Bourne. And I wanted to feature him in what he does in the county of Barnstable. And a quick little background, in case you didn't know what's going on, I'll introduce the guest in a moment here. But Massachusetts has 14 counties. In the late 90s, early 2000, 8 of the counties were dissolved. They are no longer active county governments for a variety of reasons. You can Google it, look it up. But the entire Western Mass, essentially, in the North Shore, they're counties, but they don't have county government running any functions whatsoever. Even the county jails, they've been subsumed, I guess, by the state or what have you. So really, it's southeastern Mass, the South Shore, Bristol County, Dukes County, Nantucket County, Plymouth County, and Barnstable County are the remaining active counties in Massachusetts. And I believe strongly that Barnstable County has survived because we're unified on the peninsula geographically, but also we work together very, very well, kind of isolated, but it's a strong history of intermunicipal cooperation. We can get a little parochial sometimes down here, but you know, we have the Upper Cape, the Middle, Lower Cape, the Outer Cape, depending on what you want to call it. But we do get along very well. We work very closely on a number of initiatives, and the county, I believe, is the strongest county in the state with a variety of services they provide to you that you may not know what they do. And that's part of the reason I wanted to have the show today. My family's association with the county goes back to 1830s because my great-great-grandfather was an attorney down here at the Superior Courthouse with the big columns and everything. And I just imagine him when I go down there for meetings for the town at the county complex, the horse and buggy going down that road with some of the houses that you see going into Barnstable Village were probably there back in the 1830s. And I can imagine him going up and arguing a case before the Superior Court judge back in those days. And so it's really near and dear to my heart. So Barnstable County is one of those counties that we cherish what they do, and they're in our lives more than you realize. And you realize when you talk to someone from another part of the state, maybe they don't have that kind of service. So my guest, without further ado, is Mike Maguire, who's the director of the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension Service. So
Yes.
Welcome, Mike. And first of all, what the heck is the Cooperative Extension Service, and how does it relate to the county? Because I know it's got a history. It's got an affiliation, I think, with UMass. You can explain that and the funding. So you have a kind of an interesting dynamic and history here.
We do, and as the director of the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension, I have the elevator speech ready,
Yep.
but it's a longer one, and I'm glad
we got time. We got an hour.
I'm glad we got an hour.
Just stretch out.
The way I'll introduce myself. My name is Mike Maguire. I've been with Barnstable County since 1999. I actually started with the county as the first AmeriCorps member in the AmeriCorps Cape Cod program, which many people in the environmental world on the Cape are familiar with. And that program's actually, I think it's in its 27th year now. So I've been here for a little while. And what was very interesting to me coming to Barnstable County in 1999 was just like you explained. I wasn't really quite sure about the county's role on Cape Cod and then in the state, and so the shorter version of what Cape Cod Cooperative Extension is and how it impacts our region is a cooperative extension service was something that was created in the late 1800s, and the idea behind it was that there were land universities producing a lot of really valuable information at the universities, but they weren't reaching the general public.
Land universities just is a congressional funding program for universities that focus on agriculture.
Typically agriculture, yeah.
I learned a new word, by the way. It's two new words. There's agronomy,
Yes.
which was the study of like agricultural science and farming. But do you know what agrology is?
Oh, no, teach me, Phil.
This is fun. I learned about this because I was watching someone on this, and I met her, and she was a PA. You know, you get these, PE, professional engineer, and I said agrology. It's a soil scientist.
Yeah.
So it's this person gets into the biome and all the microbes and everything, and making healthy soil, which we're going to talk about in a little bit.
We will. Kind of
an educational
keep
show,
us
I gotta do
on
these
track with this. So, the Cooperative Extension Service was created to take information that was being generated out of land-grant universities through the Smith-Lever Act and get that out to the general public. The model that was used originally was there was very good agricultural practices being developed at universities, but the farmers were very suspicious of government, and so we needed a transitionary person. So the extension agent was created so that the extension was the extension of the university going to the people, teaching one farmer how to become more productive with their crops, take science to the field, and then that farmer would vouch for the extension agent and say, listen, they are from the government and they actually are helping. So extension is typically seen as kind of the neutral party between government and the public. And so to take that model forward, we had the agriculture model, and as things evolved in our community, and we went from agrarian to tourism to blue economy to many different things over the course of the past few hundred years. The Extension Service has stayed relevant, one, because we still have a functioning county government, and two, because the needs of this particular community have actually nicely aligned with the mission of the Cooperative Extension at UMass Amherst. And then that model was actually replicated, and we had created a Sea Grant. So we had a land grant university, a Sea Grant university. Sea Grant is actually run out of Huey, so there's a Huey Sea Grant program.
Woods Hole.
Woods Hole, sorry. And so we have land grant, agriculture, nutrition, entomology, 4-H programs. Then we have the Sea Grant program, where about 40 years ago, our Cape Cod Cooperative Extension was integrally integrated into the development of aquaculture in our region. And so many of the aquaculture farms that you see today were developed in partnership with the Cooperative
We know
Extension.
someone who recently retired from the county who was in that field, harvesting oysters.
Yep.
It's Calliope Shoot that for many years ran the Household Hazardous Products collection. We'll talk about that in a minute, Household Hazardous Waste. That is, and I know another person that retired from the state who's doing oysters. So that whole sector has grown tremendously, would you say?
It has, and so the state will, the way that they put the economic value on oysters or any seafood product or agriculturally raised seafood product is farm gate value. So that is the value of the sales directly to the farmer. So when we started this many years ago, farm gate, for oysters was 1 million, 5 million. Over the past 10 years, we've seen that grow from 15 million to 50 million.
Wow.
And growing rapidly. Oysters are also a monoculture, so we've worked very, very hard with our national partnership with Sea Grant to look into making sure that farmers are raising different species. So encouraging them to look at not just hardshell clams or quahogs, but also looking into sea clams, and then feasibility was bay scallops and kelp is a new one.
I heard about kelp. Yeah.
So there's again, what we're looking to do is take all this research that's being done on the national level and at universities and bring the applied science to our community to benefit that community. So every dollar that, when I was hired as the director about 10 or 11 years ago of Extension, one of the things I talked to the commissioners about was that every local dollar that they invested in Extension, I wanted to try to bring in or match that with a federal or state grant so we could multiply our funds
Yeah.
and then use those funds to pump that back into the economy of the Cape. So there's a lot of different programs that Cape Cod Cooperative Extension operates. I often, to make it easier for people to digest, I'll just say, oh, well, we're kind of like the natural resource department of the county, which is accurate to a point, but there's a lot more that we're involved in. And when regional issues come up, for instance, we had done some work on wildfire prevention and management, and that work was done in 2008 to 2010. Developed a bunch of plans. Those plans have kind of run their useful life. We just received another $150,000 grant, actually with state matching funds and county matching funds, about $200,000 to rewrite all of the regional plans for each individual town on Cape Cod to do wildfire prevention. So, extension is very hard to define as one particular thing that we address, but I think we've stayed relevant and important in most Cape Codders' lives because we constantly are adapting to community need.
So you're funding, so the county is funded by a tax on real estate transactions primarily, correct?
Primarily, about 60%
But there's other
of the total.
grants and things.
Yeah.
So does your budget, are you funded completely separately, or is it a mixture of that money and what you
Hey,
get?
hit me at the perfect time. It's
Yeah.
I've been working on my budget
Yeah,
for the past
so
month.
what percent, give it like chunks.
So in our department, there's about 18 extension staff. There's 6 AmeriCorps staff and 18 AmeriCorps members. So if you lump everything together, the portion that comes out of the county that goes towards the staff programming, give or take in any given year, it's about $3 million for hundreds of different programs and 30 plus staff and the AmeriCorps members. That being said, that's the county portion. Now we're bringing in, generally speaking, it's 1-to-1, so about $3 million additional dollars in federal resources or state resources.
Unique to your department.
Unique to the department to put towards nutrition education. There was a wonderful program we were involved with for the past few years where the federal government was actually paying to purchase local food and distribute it to food pantries, people in need, and we're able to integrate our nutrition program in.
Hopefully that got refunded, or was that sliced?
Well, we get 2 years of it. There's a pause on it, but it was so it was so popular that I wouldn't be surprised to see that come back. It was called the LFPA program, Local Food Producers. Sorry.
It's locally grown. It's a lot of it's organic on the Cape, and it's fresh.
We included farmers in that too.
My brother was a farmer in Marshfield on the firstborn in the Mayflower Peregrine White farm in Marshfield for 1648. He got a land grant from the Pilgrims, and that was an active farm in 1970, 1980-ish. And so I got a little experience on a small farm, and it was back then it was called Make It in Massachusetts. It was in the late 70s, early 80s.
Well, now it's mass grown and fresher.
Right, exactly. And it was really hard sometimes to sell his produce, shockingly, and we've become used to this homogenized look and feel. And let's face it, we get our produce from all over the world.
Right.
We get orange juice from Brazil. We get fresh grapes from California and almonds, and we're having grapefruit in February on the Cape. Our ancestors didn't have that. They ate whatever was locally available, cranberries to get their vitamin C. But we have this huge amount of food coming in, and then people get, tomatoes need to look perfectly spherical, and there's this movement. There wasn't, in France, and it's coming over here now because we'll talk about food waste and food scraps in a moment. But perfectly, our ancestors would be like, "That's unbelievable food." But we're since World War II with mass production and flying in things from everywhere, and they gas things to make it look, and you don't want it to go rotten on the way, so they've got to make it preserve. It looks a certain way, and then people see a locally grown tomato that looks a little lumpy and maybe has a spot on it or something, but the flavor is rich, and those summer tomatoes are unbelievable. The corn, the butter and sugar corn. You get someone from any other part of the country, you get the Pioneer Valley corn,
Right.
and it's so sticky, the sugars, and you say, oh, I know what corn's like. I eat corn all the time. I said, you haven't had, that's cow corn.
Right.
Have the butter and sugar corn
So
from
a
Massachusetts.
freshly harvested piece of corn.
And you can almost eat it raw. It's so good. So the ugly food, they call it. And there's a whole campaign because people need to be educated about supporting local farmers. And it looks different. It's not mass produced. It's not going to be, in a production method with, and again, they gas these, and then you cut the tomato open in the middle of the winter, and it looks a little whitish in there. And it's tough. We don't grow local tomatoes in the middle of the winter here,
Right.
so understandable. But if you are out there and you're shopping, maybe they can go on the county website and see where the local produce is, right?
And to that end, and this will be something that, the county and a lot of services. You work in solid waste. I work in, these natural resources typically. I feel like we're the invisible web of things that are woven together that people like and want to have here and often rely on but can't see. And so, a program like this gives me an opportunity to talk about like the Buy Fresh, Buy Local program. That's something we started.
And by the way, you're welcome to link when this comes out on BourneTV.org.
Okay.
You can, go to the public channel and Google my name. This will be under Bourne Environmental Review. You're welcome to link to this on your website so that people can watch a little bit about a deeper dive into what you do. And this is why I wanted you on the show, because, I thought I heard something about farming in the county and what's going on. And so the county is kind of like the host of the money from the Extension Service. Is that the model around the country? Is it always a county, or do they do it independently, directly from the university and other areas of the country?
So we got 50 states all operating and territories as well that have extension services. So everyone has a slightly different model. Most of them are really heavily run out of the universities.
They are. Okay.
However, southern states, Midwestern states, you'll see a lot of large, where there's a heavy county presence, you'll see those stronger county extension
So do you work
services.
with UMass itself directly?
Yeah, UMass Amherst is we have a contract with them. We operate many of our programs cohesively with them. We look for guidance,
research,
best management practice, research.
Okay.
So like I want to go down the tick road with that because that's important. But I do, just to make sure I don't lose track of this, the Buy Fresh, Buy Local program, Buy Fresh, Buy Local Cape Cod. There's many Buy Fresh, Buy Locals across the Commonwealth. The one on the Cape is run out of the extension, out of the county through extension. We saw 15 years ago a lot of products being sold here that weren't from here, and we were kind of a really nice neutral agent to hold the program where we can vouch for the authenticity of the products being grown and harvested and produced in this region. And so that Buy Fresh, Buy Local Cape Cod sticker that you see on a third of the vehicles on Cape Cod, that's a program, that's an advertising program, but it's also a program operated out of our office where there's guides and brochures, and we can direct people where to purchase locally grown, produced, and harvest products. So
I've got to do more of that. I'm very guilty of not cooking enough for myself, and it's easy to just go to,
sure. I mean, all of us are, but I mean, if I think, my family, we just kind of set a goal of about 25% of what we eat. We try to consume from local producers, and I think when you do that, one, you're supporting your neighbors, and you're allowing people that how expensive it is to live here. There aren't a lot of full-time farmers on the Cape, but what there are a lot of people who depend on growing shellfish or growing produce or herbs or spices or making value-added products like jams and jellies and baked goods. That second income to them makes or breaks their ability to live here. And so supporting those endeavors and efforts, you can see that in our brochures.
There's CSAs, Community Supported Agriculture. Mm-hmm. They're part of these co-ops. You can maybe buy into them a share of the crop, and it may not, family's probably more appropriate. I don't know what I'd do with 20 pounds of squash in a week if I had to take it all of a sudden.
Take one of our our jarring classes.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so that's another important part of this. You have a nutritionist on staff, I believe, and people that prepare food that could show folks how to do things like that.
Right. And many people have probably have gone through class with one of our nutritionists. We do teach the Serve Safe program through the county.
Okay.
and that's food handling class, food safety class that food handlers and servers have to take to open their establishments. And then kind of going back, I'll go full circle back to where you're saying the connection with UMass Amherst and that land-grant university. Many people probably remember we've had two entomologists, tick guys, on Cape Cod that were very, very popular. Dave Simser, many years ago, who has passed. Dave was a close friend, incredible entomologist. And more recently, Larry Dapsis, who was also a county entomologist. And both of those tick programs, or those individuals, worked on tick education and research
I've
programs.
used those videos in training at the landfill.
Which is
and
excellent.
I swim, it just, because we are the epicenter of ticks.
And we have, we just did a presentation, Leah Hamner, who is a county epidemiologist for county health, did the health side of the presentation, and our newest hire, Escher Cattle, who just came on and replaced Larry after he retired, did a presentation on Lone Star ticks. So there's an alpha-gal red meat allergy that has become really very, very challenging on Martha's Vineyard.
Wow.
We're seeing that pop up here.
It's a different kind of tick disease than Lyme disease.
It is, and it creates an anaphylaxis reaction in many individuals that contract alpha-gal, and it's a big deal.
Sounds
really
similar to
big
my
deal.
niece, who, when she was a young girl, used to complain we had chicken in her. My tongue itches. And we're like, what? And then and didn't think much of it, and then as she got older, into about 8th grade, she had the chicken McNuggets or whatever at the school one day, and she's running around, and she went into anaphylaxis, and turns out she's allergic to poultry. Can't have turkey, chicken stock. Shocking, shellfish.
Right, and so, in this particular allergy, I encourage folks to, we've got we'll link this in after the video concludes. I'll link our resources to this, but there are a lot of tick-borne disease resources that you can research. I encourage people to look into Lone Star ticks. Lone Star ticks are a different animal. They are not like your black-legged tick or your deer tick that needs to be in the shade, doesn't like short grasses. Lone Star ticks are aggressive. They kind of run like spiders. They have things called tick bombs, where the nymphs will be hundreds of them, and they will attack and swarm you and bite you. And then the alpha-gal,
oh my God!
Like
These are from Texas?
Well,
so Lone Star meaning Texas?
The Lone Star is, there's actually a dot on the adult in the center.
Not related to Texas. Then.
It's not. They are present in Texas,
but they're not Lone Star State.
Yeah,
ticks,
they are, and they're a southern tick. But they've with climate change, we've seen them kind of. We're on the northern end of their range now, but they are endemic in our region.
Wow.
And they've just become present. And so the deal with alpha-gal, to make it really simple, is it creates an anaphylactic reaction in many people's bodies to lots of different proteins, including gelatin, which is very unfortunate because it's not like you might be taking a pill that has gelatin in it. You could be a vegetarian but still be exposed to meat cooking on a grill or cross-contaminated and having these really serious reactions from a Lone Star tick bite. So. Anyway, there's UMass Amherst, Dr. Stephen Rich there has a center of excellence in vector-borne disease, and he is doing incredible work, and we're the beneficiary of that. Our entomologist works closely with them to do research here and to do outreach and education.
So I want to make sure people know how to reach the county website. It's capecod.gov.
Yep.
Okay, and everything's on there. Tick resources. Absolutely one of the excellent services that the county provides. We are in a high-risk region, probably one of the highest risks in the country, and really understanding how to protect yourself, clothing, various lotions you could put on, even embedded clothing embedded with impregnated.
With permethrin.
Permethrin. So if you're out and about, I was out on our property we bought next to the military base, and I was out up and down this summer going through all the brush out there, and I'm checking every few feet basically. Got the DEET on myself, and you do not want to have Lyme disease. My friend was in the Army, and this is 35 years ago. I mean, he was training in the woods and stuff, Fort Drum, I think it was, or maybe even down here. And he just got fatigue and cramp, body aches, and all. And this is 25, 30 years ago. You didn't know what it was, and nobody knew back then, right?
Right.
And so under your umbrella, and I should have brought my glasses here, but you got tick issues. You got 4-H. You've got house, horticulture, agriculture. I should have brought my glasses.
So under one of the
all
other
these
programs,
little ones off the website, you probably got to memorize.
Yeah, well, under the horticulture program, one program we haven't brought up is the Master Gardener program.
Okay.
So we have about 250 active volunteers. The Master Gardener program is a fantastic partnership. They have a 501c3. They're there to support the mission of our horticulture program. We have volunteers that work in children's gardens. If anyone's been to the Barnstable County Fair, as you go through the main gates on the left-hand side, there's a demonstration garden there. Master gardeners are there to show people different species that can be grown. We have a Master Gardener hotline that people can call in and ask horticulture questions. So again, 250 active volunteers who are trained by our staff.
Amazing.
To answer anybody's questions on
and
gardening.
They do. I'm sure herb gardens, but also local vegetable gardens.
Sure, and they deal with, if you have trees that are diseased or shrubs, or you're looking for what's the most appropriate native plant to plant in your yard, they can assist you with all those questions.
Coastal resources.
Yeah. So this is, again, why my elevator speech is terrible, because it takes a long time to get through it all. We do have a coastal geologist on staff. We also have...
Well, it depends. If you're in the Burj Khalifa Hotel in Dubai, you've got a longer
Long
elevator ride.
Yeah, so we have a coastal geologist on staff that helps the towns with coastal erosion issues, hearings on where municipal buildings should be placed as we deal with sea level rise. We have a coastal processes specialist. We have flood specialists. All this is county funds that are bringing in federal dollars to help support these staff positions that work.
We
with
have
all the
houses in
towns.
Sagamore Beach that are
Right.
very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that's been in the news the last couple of years. Threatened, the cliff coming down, and how do you potentially use different techniques or products to stabilize that?
Yeah.
And the tidal rise has changed in my lifetime. In Phineas Harbor, when I was a kid, we called it moon high tide. So full moon, full tide came in, and maybe it lapped up against the park wall, and oh, look at that, moon high tide. Every night now, it's all the way up there, up a foot, in events. So it's risen significantly, noticeably, in my lifetime. In the last 25 years, 30 years.
The National Flood Insurance Program has incentives for towns to participate in certain programs that help homeowners get reductions in their flood insurance costs. And we have a staff person who's also our deputy director, Shannon Hulst, who runs that program for the county, helps homeowners, and then also trains municipal staff to understand
so you get
all
your
these
food,
programs.
You can learn how to prepare it nutritiously from local farmers.
That's right.
Get fresh shellfish, which, by the way, I was in Ohio, Columbus, for a conference a month ago, and there was an oyster bar, and I said, you have oysters from Massachusetts? You got Wellfleet oysters, they got Duxbury oysters.
That's great.
Wellfleet oysters are amazing. And the story that I
we're
heard,
not partial. The county, we love them all.
Yeah.
From Bourne to
all of
P-Town.
them. I just happened to say, Wellfleet's very famous,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
And they are very sweet. And I went down to the, I worked in the solid waste. The way it relates to solid waste is that you used to throw away all the shells.
Yeah.
But then it's a program where they were collecting them and then seeding new beds with the spit or spat?
Spat. So
Spat,
they
which is
call
the-
it culch. The
yeah.
shells are culch.
But you can't just throw any old oyster shells out there.
No,
because of
there's
disease.
laws on that,
The
yeah.
whole program, and then I went down to Wellfleet and we gave them an award from Mass Recycle, which I was part of on the board, which was to recognize them for their efforts to not bring it to a landfill or an incinerator.
Exactly.
And it was a credible program, and I've learned, I think it was Champlain, the explorer back in the 16th century, early 17th century maybe, who was exploring along the Cape and came into Wellfleet Harbor, and the mounds of oysters were enormous. I mean, like reefs.
You can still find those middens today. Sometimes with when the beach erodes, you see shells that are hundreds and hundreds of years old. It's amazing.
Those are that's the spoils, right? The middens, right?
Yeah.
But I'm talking like out in the harbor.
Oh yeah.
What do you call the natural reef of oysters they've built up?
Yeah,
over
no, an oyster
same
reef.
thing.
That,
Okay.
Yep.
And they were running into them on the ship, and then of course I think it was the 19th century they just industrialized it all, and they didn't have any kind of guidance or awareness of sustainability programs. I mean, you see this in the 19th century.
Yeah.
They're out in cutting out all these old growth forests just as fast as they possibly could. Then they got gold. They had these huge hydraulic cannon, if you will. They would harvest, get the water coming down, and they would put it through a giant cannon that guys would sit on the cannon and ride it and just gouge out entire side slopes of mountains, gouging it, all that sediment running down into the spawning grounds of salmon, and just no concept of what they were doing, devastating, releasing all sorts of minerals in just destroying fishing, spawning grounds to get to the gold. That was stopped in like 1890s, but for decades, think about that. I mean, we're talking a hose with hundreds of PSI, tens of thousands of gallons of water, just gouging out entire acres on the side slope. That was common, cutting down and denuding entire forests with no rhyme nor reason, and all the sediment washing down into. So we know better now. With regard to coastal resources, I would imagine you're also helping communities restore estuarine resources that were choked off by either rail or poor planning or no culverts. In Bourne, up in Scusset Beach, there is one. We have the areas of critical environmental concern. In Bourne, two huge ones are the Back River, ACEC, and Pecasset River. And I'll just attest again, when I was a kid growing up down there, I never saw an egret. I never saw a blue heron. I never saw a peregrine, an osprey. And all of a sudden, they're like mosquitoes everywhere. And you'll see the snow egrets flying over to the Bay, Pecasset, the Back River. So I imagine you're involved in restoring all that flushing and the interaction with the salt water and fresh water.
The county hosts we host a group called the Coastal Resource Committee. There's a representative from each of the 15 towns on the Cape. They all get together, discuss issues like this in coastal zone management, which is a state agency. Yep. Steve McKenna from that and one of our staff from Extension from the county host this meeting, and we talk about all these needs, and then coastal zone management actually has funds to fund a lot of these projects, and then there's some larger federal programs that also fund some of those. So yeah, we're involved in that as well.
They're coming back, and I believe it was Scusset Beach, they reconnected the flow that was choked off, and that flushing. It is the incubator, if you will, of so much of our food chain, and marine life.
It's a very complicated piece, and I would encourage the audience that are interested in it. You could look at what the county's dredge program does. It's a dredging is a very expensive, complicated process with a lot of permits, and the county has taken on dredging to assist all the 15 towns on the Cape with their needs. Is it the end-all, be-all? We don't have the ability to do every dredge project, but many of the projects that get accomplished in this region are done through the county's dredge program.
Dredge. And by the way, where do they go with the soils? Maybe they go to Bourne with
Maybe
some
they
soil?
go to Bourne.
So it's interesting that having local resources is so critical, because we are a very unique and special place in Massachusetts that we all know, we love. It really needs to be looked out after, and we all know that there are many changes happening with socioeconomic stratification, affordability. The traffic that's out at the Bourne Rotary tonight wasn't there 10 years ago. People can't afford to live here, so they're commuting. And I used to think, like, what are you doing here? It's December, and it's bumper-to-bumper traffic at the Rotary. It never was like that. I mean, it was like Labor Day weekend, see you Memorial Day weekend, and it was like a ghost town. It was like the local. And we have second homeowners that are moved down because of COVID, and remote workers, which is fantastic. My family, we had a second home. They were Brocktonians, so I'm in that. Of that, but it was just a long time ago, like 125 years ago. but we understand they're all layers of the economy, but affordability is a big issue, and really trying to make a way to live down, having food resources and shellfish resources.
And
are
I think
helpful.
you're really hitting the nail on the head with, the master's program that I did. I received a master's in public administration. One of the really unique things I found through that program was that Massachusetts does things so differently than most other states. And so if you're going to study state government, local government, almost every case study is going to include some of the things that we do here, because so many of the ideas of self-determination, self-government were founded in this region. And for people who are frustrated with government, like I work for the government, I'm also frustrated with government. I understand that. One of the really incredible benefits of living in this community and having a regional government that still exists is having a home rule charter, having the ability for the 15 towns to get together and bring those issues to the State House. So just like if we've been to town meeting, it's frustrating. Not everyone is going to agree, and those are challenging meetings to be at. But at the same time, what a blessing it is to be able to go and voice your opinion and feel like you can make change. And the same change that you can make in a town, when the county gets together and all 15 towns get together in county regional government and discuss things, when we go to the State House and have a unified voice, that gets heard much clearer than one town trying to go to Boston and explain that need. And so if you look at what's being done on a regional basis through the county, that's where the value is. The value is in the unified voice.
Well, one prime example of that is when I started my career, Cape Cod Commission was just came on the scene. It was the CCPEDC, we called it, the Cape Cod Economic Development Corporation. What was it? CCPEDC, Cape Cod, whatever. It was down at the other end of the county complex. Patty Daly, my dear friend, who's been with the county since late '80s. It was the precursor to the Cape Cod Commission, and they morphed into it. And for those of you who don't know, Cape Cod Commission is a regional planning and permitting agency. It's kind of got this weird dual role, and they started off really heavy on the regulatory permitting, cranking down on kind of a lot of development, and a lot of people didn't like that. But the pace at which the Cape was being developed, we would have awakened, 30 years later now, and we would have seen an enormous amount of development. We would have lost a lot of areas.
Probably look a lot more like New Jersey.
It would look very different, and they've now, I think they've adjusted about 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago under Paul Nedzwicki, who now is the chamber director, to try to, let's get a balance here. We need regional infrastructure on Cape Cod. As always, in my particular world, we're going to talk about how we're intersecting on that, and the county's helping take a lead on that, or leading on that. But we need local infrastructure, and it's not easy to do. And then you've got to balance it, because we are much more populated year-round. That, like I said, in the 70s, it was Labor Day weekend, board up the house, everybody goes away, all the summer folks. I was a summer kid until, late 80s. And you didn't see anybody until Memorial Day weekend, essentially.
Right.
And now it's, the shoulder season, they call it, with the golfers, and they're a big part of the economy. And now we've had another wave with second homeowners making it their primary residences. But it's also the affordability, because what were $200,000, $300,000 homes not that long ago are now easily 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, or even, $1 million home. They're now down in Osterville. They're getting, it's like $15 million is nothing. You wouldn't bat an eyelash, which is just stunning. And they're gorgeous. They're 10,000 square foot homes. Obviously, that is not a lot of people can afford to do that. And the military base for Joint Base Cape Cod, for you that don't know, Mass Development is the quasi-state agency that looks at military land being divested from the state to other uses. And that is going to be part of the next 2 years for a master plan on the military base, and the county is a very big part of that. Cape Cod Commission is part of that. They did a study 25 years ago. Mark Forrest, who's the county commissioner right now, is part of that.
Integral
But
part.
we know there's 22,000 acres out there in the Upper Cape. It's the biggest chunk of land. It's obvious that, well, why don't we do this and why don't we do that? Put an airport here and affordable housing there and schools over here and this and that. And it could easily, but it is absolutely, as those of you who watched the show a year ago, I had Jake McCumber, the natural resources manager, a incredibly important pine barrens and fire-adapted habitat on the entire east coast of the United States. Many endangered species out there. We can't just go carving up the the old Army range out there for a lot of reasons.
Unexploded ordnance.
Unexploded ordnance, one of them. And I heard them exploding when I was out there when they were doing prescribed burns. It was, and then they got a little out of control last May. It was coming towards us. But there's the 7,000 acres in the cantonment area down on the south that is going to be looked at, and I think we're going to see some affordable housing. But the military families need to get taken care of because they're often at poverty level. If you're an enlisted person. And then there's workplace housing, they call it workforce housing, where it's folks that work down here that, maybe they have hourly jobs or lower paying jobs that need apartments or whatever, not just single family homes. And that all is going to be looked at. And interestingly, solid waste is part of your rubric, if you will, your purview, and the county is the host to a state position. Why don't you tell us about that, and then
Sure.
we'll talk about a project that we're working together with you.
Make the elevator speech longer. There's another division of the extension service that deals with household hazardous waste, which we're involved in, and then solid waste management. And there's a position called the Municipal Assistance Coordinator. It is a grant-funded position. Mass Department of Environmental Protection, or Mass DEP, funds that position. It works out to about an 80-20 split, so the state pays about 80% of the position, the county pays 20%, and this person goes to each of the 15 towns with however they're managing their solid waste. Bourne obviously has gold standard for how you guys do things. But each town has needs, and whether it's trying to figure out the best recycling practices in the town, how to compost, how to bid out projects on a larger scale to get better pricing on whether it be a solid waste contract or a recycling contract or processed glass aggregate. There's all kinds of things that towns need assistance with. So the conduit from the state agency that's regulating the solid waste, Mass DEP, to the towns who are having to deal with it, we need a person in between. That person is the Municipal Assistance Coordinator, or MAC for short. In our region, that person is Carrie Parcell. Carrie's worked for us for 7 or 8 years now. Worked very closely with you and is working on a regional composting project that is while it's a very large undertaking, it's an incredibly important undertaking, and I think we're going to see a significant reduction in what we're seeing in solid waste by reducing the amount of food that is in solid waste.
So, and this is really important. This is near and dear to me. I actually had that position before it was called MAC. It was called Municipal Recycling Incentive Program Coordinator.
Right.
And
you're the OG.
And I'm the OG, and I had all of Cape Cod and all of South Shore, so
Yeah.
I carry that every once in a while. I had 54 communities. And, but she does a fantastic job. There's a grant program, towns earn points to get money, and she helps with all of that. But she also works on regional projects, and she's probably, of all the MACs in the state, there's like 6 or 7 or so. She's by far the most active with the communities that I'm aware of, really working in the region on projects beyond just the grant program, which is due at a certain point in time in the year in June, and you have the rest of the year to work on other projects. And former county employee, retired recently, Amy Alati, who was doing the Tier 2, which is community right to know, and where all the hazardous waste is stored. She was on a committee with myself and Mary Ryther from Falmouth, who had ran a little composting operation on her farm.
Mm-hmm.
Like 10 years ago, we were looking for a compost. It's very hard to cite anything. I thought of the county farm. Well, how about the county farm? Could use Well, I mean, the concern is odors and birds, and you're down the seat of the government with
flight pattern for airplanes, like this,
all sorts of
everything,
stuff.
yeah.
So it's not simple. So, and this is where it gets tough, because I'll put on my solid waste hat here for a moment. Massachusetts communities, especially on the Cape, when the old dumps closed, which were unlined liabilities affecting wetlands. We all know, Love Canal. If you don't know, the younger person, Google it. It was led to Superfund in late 1980. All the town dumps closed. They went to CMAS, which is a waste energy facility in Rochester, except for Bourne. They make electricity. So that closed probably 50 old dumps. So most towns have a transfer station, but then there are only a few of those combustion facilities in the state. There's 5 left, and then big regional landfills are closing, and nobody's replacing them because nobody wants to be, unlike Bourne, which is the anomaly, because we had a site, and that's a long history. You can go to our website and check it out. I'm usually separate my work from this show. It's my personal show, but people know I work for the town. But we're sending waste to Alabama now by rail because we don't have facilities. We don't have local infrastructure. We're sending waste to Ohio, 1 million tons a year of construction demolition debris. South Carolina, Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York. We have no place to put asbestos in Massachusetts. Dirty dirt. You're like, what are you talking about, Phil? Well, if you dig anywhere in Cambridge or Boston, you're going to hit contaminated soil. And if you want to put affordable housing in an urban environment, make it cheap. If you have to haul every truckload of dirt 600 miles round trip, it's going to make it more expensive. So food waste, food scrap is a big deal at the state level to try to reduce that, and there are restrictions to say if you're at a certain level of generation on the commercial side, you can't put that in the waste stream. But we have to have a place to go. There's anaerobic digestion. Bourne was involved in that at one point, but then there's composting. So now there are composters on the Cape collecting food scraps from like Bourne and Falmouth and others, but they're driving off the Cape with their food scraps. So if you did a carbon analysis, we're losing on that but the good news is you have vendors that are ready to go and they want a location on the Cape. So we saw an opportunity through the Cape Cod Commission and the county administrator.
Yep.
Tell that story.
So I think it was around 5 to 7 years ago, we had a county administrator, Jack Eunice, who was in Europe, and I don't remember which facility.
Denmark.
He was in Denmark, and saw a really interesting compost facility that included.
Well, it was more than that.
Yeah.
So Google this. This is fun. It's in Copenhagen. It is a waste energy facility with $650 million, and it was state of the art. They take all of Denmark's waste and they bring it in from the UK too, but they have a ski slope on the top of it. Yeah, the Scandinavians are really cool about design.
Yeah.
They literally have a ski slope with artificial, and they're skiing on the top of this facility. He saw that. He said,
we could be doing a better job with solid waste here. Jack was the mayor of, I believe it was Taunton,
Brockton.
Brockton, I'm sorry, Mayor Brockton for 10 years or so, very innovative guy. And he said, listen, let's put some money together, work with the county commissioners, make sure that everybody's on board and the assembly delegates, put some money aside. Let's do a study of what's going on with solid waste in this region. What can we be doing better? And so that we did a study, kind of with some recommendations, some low-hanging fruit. It sat for a couple of years, and thanks to people like you, Phil, and others that pushed. So let's keep this going. What can we do? Where can we go with this? What is the lowest hanging fruit? What is the most appropriate thing for us to do? Biggest bang for our buck. And if you look at, there's a lot of challenges with solid waste. Nobody likes talking about it or dealing with it. But there's 2 pieces to it. 1, the expense to communities, and 2, the ethics of shipping our trash to other places. So personally, I don't think there's many people, one-on-one conversation where I said, hey, do you know that your trash goes to a really impoverished community in Alabama?
Median income is $17,000.
And they dump it there, and there aren't, the landfills aren't lined, and
I would just clarify, because I know the industry, that is a modern facility, but it's just big because the Northeast doesn't want the infrastructure here, and so they just keep sucking it down south.
Yeah, and so this we'll put it this way. The standards for I think the people that live in this community have expectations for. I don't think those are being met when we're shipping that to other communities.
They'd be shocked at how far it goes, some of the waste. Yeah.
And so, I think from my perspective, if we're generating the waste, we need to have a local solution to it. And if you look at what's if you busted open 1,000 bags of household trash, 25 to 35% of what is in that household trash is stuff that could be composted. It's food scraps.
Yep.
And for us to just say, to be flip about it and not have a local solution to it, I mean, I don't think anybody here wants that as a solution, which is like, oh, just ship it somewhere else. So if we can create a facility on the military base that can receive and using modern composting standards, handle all of this food scrap and mix it with the appropriate amount of carbon, with whether that's chipped trees or leaves or other things that we can put in. We have the ability to, one, reduce the amount of solid waste that's being generated. Two, find a place locally where all these organics can be composted. And three, probably have a viable product that could be reused in our communities. So, that's a project that no one town is going to want to undertake. So at the county, through our new county administrator, Michael Dutton, and through Commissioner Mark Forrest, who has a long-standing history of working on projects in military base and regional projects across Cape Cod. We've seen really good, strong leadership working with you and others to potentially site a facility on the base that could handle this regionally.
It's hugely, it is literally a milestone. And just to put this in context, we've been searching for a site for a decade. And understandably, if you're a community that's focused on the roads and the schools, and you're like, oh, got the transfer station, but a compost, ooh, it gets dicey pretty quickly. If I don't have the staff, the site, the odors, the birds, you need to be on top of it because there have been projects that have failed. So we all know that. And so we look to the base because there's obviously a lot of space. Now you're dealing with another bureaucracy out in the base, and they have their concerns with an airport, right? They have fixed wing, rotary wing aircraft. Through a lot of cooperation with the recently retired General Foe, who was the executive director, and now the incoming director, who is the new director, Colonel Porter. Long story short, we identified some parcels out there, and we actually have one that we have identified as a 20-acre parcel next to the old online dump out there that could be the home for this regional facility. To the county's credit, and this was not easy for the county to do because it's a little uncomfortable. There's some history with regional facilities, the fire academy, and some things you might have read in the paper. County's not really building infrastructure. That's not your primary job. But we kept pushing you to say, look, Bourne's doing its part. We can't squeeze any more on our site. We're doing so many things, but we need a facility. And a lot of towns in the Upper Cape, especially, and the development group is Falmouth, Mary Ryther, myself, and Bourne. And then Sandwich and Mashpee are going to participate. And the base itself has food, and they have 7,000 tons a year chipped from managing Camp Edwards.
I think we're going to have the tribe involved.
We have all of it lined up, and we just had a meeting recently. We think we could carve out that 20 acres on a fast track, and then the county has agreed that were it to become available in the communities, we're now getting everybody into an intergovernmental agreement. The county would take ownership, and then now we got control of a place. And we're going to figure out the model, and that's a long story. But having the local and keep it local, keep all the nutrients and the energy local, reduce the carbon footprint going up the Cape, and the composting entities that run the companies like Black Earth, and there's another one, Second Nature, I think it's called, or others, Watts Farm. They're dying to have a local facility. And
the path to no is really easy, And
yes, it is.
You've worked for municipal government much longer than I have.
Very easy.
I've been at it for 26 years. If we were to chart this path out, there's a million no's, but there is now a path to yes, and there are standards. We have other models that have succeeded, and we know that there are going to be a lot of challenges. There are a lot of community meetings. There's going to be a lot of site planning and considerations that have to be taken into consideration. However, there is a very reasonable and viable plan in place now that I think we're going to see this.
I think we're going to get it. We got a few minutes left here. I will make sure people know that when you go to your household hazardous waste collection event, and there's 24 of them on the Cape, and in Bourne, it's every October. That is run by the county through your program, and that was coming out of the Extension Service. And I want to give credit to the late Marilyn Lopes of Bourne, who pioneered the first programs in the county and in probably the state, that then Cooperative took over for 20 years and probably ran 400 events. God bless her, that's hard.
Yeah.
And now we have a new young gentleman, Anthony Garace, doing that. And so that's the county. So when you got to get rid of your old bleach and paint, and the county works with us on shrink wrap, on latex paint, extended producer responsibility with batteries, get that letter signed for me.
Yes, right.
So the county is doing things in your daily life that are really, food, working with youth and 4-H programs, your health with ticks, aquaculture, horticulture, coastal reefs. I mean,
geology, flooding.
We can keep going on and on here.
Yeah.
This is your county government, capecod.gov. I mean, we could probably spend. We're 2 minutes late. Was that a fast hour or what?
Yeah. And we didn't touch on a lot of things, but what I would encourage the audience to do is check us out. Every single one of the folks that works at Extension, our job is to reach out to the community and communicate with you. You want to find out more information, you're welcome to call me. I mean, I'm an administrator, so I can tell you the generals. But go to our experts, talk to them. I encourage you to communicate with them. We're all there as a resource to the community.
And we're one sliver, and I give credit to Mike, because under Mike's leadership, AmeriCorps on the Cape was saved, and Mike, till the last second, was working with the federal government to get those young people to stay down here in the Cape, and that's under his purview. And there's also, you work with the Health and Environment Department, which does a county lab, emergency research, planning, vaccines, the county nurse.
Water quality testing lab.
Water quality testing. We can go on and on and on. We have a fantastic county. I'm so proud to be part of the community on Cape Cod, and thank you for what you do, and for the county administrator and all the staff at the county. Check out the website at capecod.gov. Thank you so much. My name is Phil Goddard. Mike Maguire, thank you. This will be on the Bourne TV website in the near future. Have a wonderful holiday season, and I'll see you in 2026.
Thanks, Phil.